This is one of the creepiest ghost stories I've ever heard, and it's really the main reason I chose to do this creepy transit series. So let's talk about the ghosts of Eastern Airlines Flight 401. So this was a flight in December of 1972 that unfortunately crashed outside of Miami, Florida in the Everglades. Basically, the pilots had gotten distracted with a burnt out light in the cockpit. One of the pilots accidentally disengaged autopilot, and then the plane slowly lost altitude and crashed. This is where it gets insane. So after the crash, they took pieces of the plane, of the wreckage that were salvageable, and put them into other planes. And then in the months that followed, people that flew and worked on these planes started to report seeing the ghosts of the deceased passengers. There was even a pilot who was asked to go speak to a passenger in the cabin because the flight attendants couldn't get him to respond and he wasn't on their manifest. When the captain went out to talk to him, he recognized him as the pilot of Flight 401. And there were multiple other stories of people seeing the pilot from Flight 401, including one where he was in the cockpit before a flight and he warned the crew about a faulty electrical circuit. And then there actually was a faulty electrical circuit that had to be fixed before the flight. It got so bad that Eastern Airlines actually told its employees, allegedly, to stop talking about ghost stories or they would be fired. CEO of Eastern called these ghost stories garbage, but despite that, Eastern allegedly ended up removing the salvaged parts and the ghost stories slowly stopped.
Inside an airplane is an employee who's recording a video showing what he does in a typical workday. As part of a cleaning crew, his main job is to clean planes that have just landed. This is something that he often does at night, especially with planes that are big enough to hold the most trash. But one night, he decides to do something different. Rather than leaving the plane that he just cleaned, he stays behind. Usually a cabin cleaner moves on to clean the next aircraft, but seeing that his work was done and that no passengers would board the plane for a while, he stays. Purely for the fun of it, he does this. But this experience was anything but fun, because as he hides in the back of the plane, this happens.
Let's go. I know I'm not done nothing. Throw shades up because I got a flash on me. Don't catch my eyes with this. It's dark. I know it doesn't look that dark when you can't really see. Let's go! Right, I'm sitting on the back of the plane. Y'all probably think I'm insane. Probably think I'm doing this for fame. Probably think I'm doing this for fame.
Caught off guard, he walks over to see if anyone's there, but to his shock, the space is completely empty. Somehow, the seatbelt flings out towards the aisle in a sudden motion, without there being someone on the seat. It seemingly throws itself, as if unbuckled by a passenger who's eager to get off the plane. Whatever it was that just happened scared the living daylights out of him, so much so that he scurries back to his hiding spot in the back of the plane. Hours pass, and he gets off the plane after personnel finds him inside. All in all, this experience has left him so rattled that he continues to share updates talking about this incident and mentioning how he should have stayed out of this plane. It goes without saying, but this incident has spooked him beyond belief.
That motherfucker back there is not real!
Those were the words that instantly turned an ordinary American Airlines flight in July 2023 into one of the internet's most unsettling viral moments. In the now infamous clip, the visibly shaken woman stands in the aisle, pointing toward the back of the plane and insisting the person next to her wasn't human. Her voice trembles. Her face looks drained. Passengers stare in confusion as she demands to get off the aircraft immediately. Some viewers dismissed her as drunk or having a panic episode, but a different group focused on her body language, arguing her fear didn't look performative. They said it resembled raw, instinctive terror. Then things got stranger. After the video went viral, the woman seemed to vanish. No interviews, no follow-ups, no public statements. For months, there was silence, which only fueled speculation. Conspiracy theories flooded TikTok and Reddit, with users asking, what did she see? Eventually, a brief apology-style video surfaced. In it, she appeared calmer, but noticeably stiff. Supporters insisted something felt off.
She was on a plane when she noticed something strange outside her window. At first, she didn't think much of it, but minutes after takeoff, the plane was hit by violent turbulence. She began panicking, saying it felt like someone had taken control of the aircraft. Then, the video cut out. Weeks later, floating suitcases were found in the ocean, but no passengers were ever recovered.
My name is Alex. I used to work as a flight attendant, and this creepy experience still haunts me till today. It happened in 2019, only 3 months after I started my job. I was assigned to serve an overnight flight flying from Beijing to Los Angeles, a long journey that lasted 14 hours. When all passengers finished boarding, the cabin was nearly full. I did routine checks and noticed seat for 1B at the back was empty. The captain confirmed every registered traveler had come on board, so I just thought it was an unused seat and paid no extra attention. Around 2 o'clock in the midnight, most passengers fell asleep. Soft, dim light filled the aisle, and the whole cabin stayed quiet. I began my regular patrol, and suddenly, the call button of seat for 1B lit up red. I was shocked, for I saw nobody sitting there at all. I walked toward the back nervously. Out of nowhere, a man appeared on that empty seat. He wore an old black suit with no luggage beside him. His face was extremely pale, and his eyes looked dark and hollow, without any light reflection. He spoke in a cold, flat voice, saying he had not received his supper. I felt confused because meals had been distributed an hour earlier. I apologized and hurried to fetch a dinner tray. Yet when I got back, the strange man had vanished completely, leaving the seat empty once again. I told everything to a senior attendant right away. She sighed and told me a frightening fact. 1 year ago, a passenger died unexpectedly right on this same seat along this flight route. I checked the passenger list carefully, and no name was recorded under seat for 1B. 1 hour later, the call button flashed again. This time I saw the man clearly. He kept asking for food repeatedly. When I handed him the tray, my hand accidentally touched his skin. It was icy cold, and his hand even looked translucent. Scared out of my mind, I ran to the cockpit and reported the strange sight. Pilots checked all cabin cameras, but there was no sign of the mysterious man on any screen. They thought I was tired and suffered hallucinations after long night work. I knew all I saw was real. For the rest of the flight, I dared not approach the rear cabin. I constantly felt a cold gaze staring at my back. After we landed safely, I inspected the cabin one last time. The man was gone, but a clear, cold fingerprint remained on the seat surface. I still wonder why this spirit kept lingering here.
Inside an airplane is an employee who's recording a video showing what he does in a typical workday. As part of a cleaning crew, his main job is to clean planes that have just landed. This is something that he often does at night, especially with planes that are big enough to hold the most trash. But one night, he decides to do something different. Rather than leaving the plane that he just cleaned, he stays behind. Usually, a cabin cleaner moves on to clean the next aircraft, but seeing that his work was done and that no passengers would board the plane for a while, he stays. Purely for the fun of it, he does this. But this experience was anything but fun, because as he hides in the back of the plane, this happens.
I know I'm not dumb enough to lift those shades up because I got my flash on in here. They gonna catch my ass if they see. I ain't gonna lie to y'all though, it's Mad cold in here. And it's dark. I mean, I know it doesn't look that dark on the camera, but it's dark. Let's go! Let's go! Right, sitting on the back of the plane. And y'all probably think I'm insane. Probably think I'm doing this for fame. Probably think I'm doing it for fame.
Caught off guard, he walks over to see if anyone's there, but to his shock, the space is completely empty. Somehow, the seatbelt flings out towards the aisle in a sudden motion, without there being someone on the seat. It seemingly throws itself, as if unbuckled by a passenger who's eager to get off the plane. Whatever it was that just happened scared the living daylights out of him, so much so that he scurries back to his hiding spot in the back of the plane. Hours pass, and he gets off the plane after personnel finds him inside. All in all, this experience has left him so rattled that he continues to share updates talking about this incident and mentioning how he should have stayed out of this plane. It goes without saying, but this incident has spooked him beyond belief.
Airplane's scary urban legends. In early 1973, Eastern Airlines Flight 401 crashed into the Florida Everglades. It was traveling from New York to Miami when all of a sudden the plane's autopilot feature was disabled and eventually it would lose some altitude, eventually crashing. Although 75 people managed to survive, there were a total of 101 people who lost their lives, including Captain Robert Bob Loft and flight engineer Donald Repo. In the year that followed, stories swirled that flight crews, attendants, and passengers swore to see several sightings of Repo and sometimes briefly Captain Bob Loft on some Eastern planes. It was theorized they appeared to warn of impending problems in an effort to satisfy their guilt over their former fatal mistake. And one of the scariest things about the story is that one flight engineer reported that he was shocked after finding that he was sitting right beside Donald Repo after he passed away. Eventually, the ghost of Don would vanish out of thin air, but you could imagine what it would feel like sitting next to a ghost.
What happened to that girl on the plane that swore there was a non-human sitting next to her? Do you guys remember that? Because right after that, she disappeared. Back in July of 2023, a woman went viral in American Airlines because she was freaking out, claiming that someone sitting next to her was not a human. He was not real, which freaked out everyone. She looked completely terrified, like if she saw something that she wasn't supposed to see. People joked and said she was drunk or on something, but body language experts said that she was genuinely terrified. The kind of fear your brain releases when you were not supposed to see something, or when you just can't explain what's in front of you. After this video went viral, she went completely silent. No interviews, no reactions, no nothing. It was like if she had just disappeared. Months later, she appeared in like this one interview. It was like an interview or like a video of her apologizing, but everyone claimed that she looked completely different. She was just too nervous, too weird. It looked like she was almost coached on what to say. Party Girl Makeup by Nikki is one of the most disturbing videos on the internet. Just imagine scrolling online, trying to look for a good video. You press on it, seems like an innocent tutorial, but it takes a very dark turn. Suddenly, it's one of the scariest videos ever that people still talk about. In 2018, a video called Party Makeup by Nikki started going viral and everyone was watching it, but for a different reason. At first, it looked totally harmless. A woman very happy showing people, well, what makeup she uses, the eye palettes, her mascara, whatever. Just like a simple, normal tutorial. However, after a few minutes, things get very weird. All of a sudden, her smile completely fades as she's staring at the screen, very stiff. It's weird. Out of nowhere, she slams her head against the table once, twice, again and again, until she's sitting very bloody, not moving. The cheerful music keeps playing in the background, which makes this 10 times more disturbing than it already is. The thing is, most people thought it was real at the time, but I think it got debunked and it was part of like a horror short or something. Regardless of what it is, it's still one of the most terrifying things to watch. The woman that haunts hospitals in Mexico. Next time you're sick and in a hospital bed, don't call the nurse too fast. You might summon the wrong one. Legend calls her La Planchada, the Iron Lady. A woman with a super white uniform and face so cold like ice. She worked in the hospital city in Mexico decades ago. She was beautiful, perfect, everybody loved her. But everything changed when she fell in love with a very handsome young doctor who promised to marry her. He never got to marry her and he vanished, leaving her completely devastated. She was heartbroken and fell into despair. She started making mistakes at work, neglecting her patients, and some of them died. And then, so did she. However, she never left. To this day, patients in Mexico report the same thing. A woman in an all-white uniform comes in the room, checks your temperature, writes something down, and then disappears. Some patients wake up feeling well, and others don't wake up at all. So the next time you're sick in Mexico, think about going to the hospital. You might come across La Planchada. If you're a parent and your children are on TikTok or YouTube Shorts, whatever, you might want to listen to this. Guys, the brain rot videos you guys are letting your children watch is actually subliminals. You know that annoying TikTok sound that says alelele, alelas, whatever the F that is? Yep, that's exactly what it is. At first, it looks like nonsense, goofy sharks, stick figures, and a bunch of weird stuff. However, people online claim that if you slow it down or if you really pay attention to the words or actually use Google Translate, it has a darker meaning. You can hear subliminals and words against God and a bunch of messed up stuff. Some say the words are reverse chants and others are just programmed to hypnotize children to keep watching them. But not only that, along with these words, there's some videos that you guys are not paying attention to that are actually super inappropriate. There's actually one really inappropriate one that I saw on YouTube Shorts. Well, I didn't see it, I saw someone else post about it. It's about this stick figure getting a girl pregnant, and it shows bad stuff. So pay attention when your kids are watching, y'all.
Hello, my name is Sydney. I'm a flight attendant. If you don't know that, which you probably don't because I don't have a lot of followers. But anyways, that's me. My name is Sydney. I'm a flight attendant. And I've always wanted to do a spooky, scary ghost story. But how do I make that flight attendant content? But then I had a pilot tell me a story about Flight 401. And I think it is just... it was perfect. So let's get started. On December 29th, 1972, which just happens to be my birthday, not 1972, but weird. There was an Eastern Airlines flight flying from New York to Miami. So these people, they were trying to party, and they did not get a party. The flight left at 9:20 p.m. from JFK Airport with 176 passengers on board. Everything was going fine and the plane was landing at 11:30 p.m. into Miami. Well, they did not end up making it to the Miami International Airport because they smashed into the Everglades instead. They did that instead. I'm not very good at making this spooky, but that's what happened. The captain ended up dying in the crash not long after, and the first officer died in the hospital after that. And in total, 101 passengers and flight crew ended up dying on this plane crash. As you can imagine, it smashed into the fucking Everglades. This is actually very surprising because 75 people actually survived this plane crash. If that makes you ever feel any better, you could survive. So, at the time, this was the highest death toll rate of any single airplane crash in the United States. Now, as if this was not tragic enough, things started to get spooky, scary, ghostly after this. Now, the captain's name was Bob Loft, and the first officer's name was Don Repo. And over the next year and a half, Eastern Airline employees were seeing sightings of the captain and the first officer, which, as you can tell, is pretty strange because they are not with us anymore. Sorry, that was insensitive. They have moved on. They've passed into another life. They would see their reflections in the galleys. When passengers would open overhead bins, they would see reflections. The cockpit crew in another Eastern Airlines flight claimed to have seen Repo, the captain, sitting amongst them in the cockpit, and he was warning them about a faulty electrical circuit which had since been fixed. Weird. The vice president of Eastern Airlines even saw him on a flight from JFK. Is that not suspicious and weird? The CEO was kind of putting off the stories and didn't want any attention with the ghost sightings at all, which kind of makes sense. And if any airline crew members reported seeing any ghosts, they would have them go to the company shrinks. And management would go as far as to say that they would fire any employees who brought up any ghost stories, period. Go to part 2 because it gets wild.
And I am telling you right now, in that motherfucker right there is not real. Whatever happened to that motherfucker? Y'all beat this shit. So, who remember the infamous viral as hell video of some lady? She was in an airport. No, she was in an airport. She was on an airplane and shit like that. And I'm guessing, now, here's the thing. I don't know if they was about to take off, or they have already taken off, or if they have landed. Now, what happened in the video is that baby girl got terrified that she saw something sitting next to her. Like, baby girl was terrified. Like, she said, that motherfucker is not real. So, my whole thing is, ever since that video done went viral, I've always had questions, like, and I even spoke on it, because I think this happened, like, somewhere last year? Yeah, I spoke on that shit, because I was like, what the fuck did she see? Did the spectators around her, come on now, that's a whole damn fucking plane. Did the spectators around her see the motherfucker too? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I wonder what the fuck did they see? Like, nobody has came forth and said anything about this situation. Like, I already wonder what happened to the fucking lady. Some people even said she went on to do commercials. Some people said she done disappeared. Me personally, I ain't seen none of this shit. I think she done disappeared for real, to be honest with you. But that will always be a conspiracy or a story. Could you even say a conspiracy? Because like I said, we all done seen it in 4K. You know what I'm saying? And nobody got a visual, a video, a picture of this motherfucker at all. Like, I mean, come on now. Oh.
The woman in this video desperately begs to be let off the plane and convinces other passengers to leave it urgently too. She claims that all passengers on board are in danger and that the plane will not reach its destination. This incident occurred in 2023 at Dallas International Airport aboard an airplane that was supposed to fly to Orlando. In the video, it is noticeable that some passengers are looking back, but they clearly do not see what this woman sees. As a result, this flight was delayed for almost 4 hours, and the woman was nevertheless taken off the plane along with the rest of the passengers. She was taken to the security room, where she continued to insist that all passengers on this flight were in danger, and later, the police checked the plane very carefully, but no oddities were found. But later, the engineers decided to check the technical condition of the aircraft again, and during an inspection of the landing gear release mechanism, they found that the aircraft's rear landing gear was jammed. That is, during landing, the landing gear could fail, and a terrible catastrophe could occur. After this incident, this mysterious woman disappeared without a trace, forever.
Eerie story, and don't forget to follow and like if you like history, mystery, and everything in between. And also don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. How would you feel going on a beautiful, big, elegant plane and looking over and seeing a ghost sitting next to you? This really happened in 1973. So a flight attendant is checking all of her people and she has an extra person and she sees this pilot sitting in a seat and she's like, okay, he must be coming over because there was a layover or whatever. It happens all the time, but usually they sign a log saying that there is a pilot going to be on board, an extra pilot, and a lot of times they sit up with the crew. This one was sitting right with everyone else. So this attendant goes and she says, okay, sir, are you on the list? I can't find you. And he just stares ahead. Doesn't give her any answers, just keeps staring straight ahead. She's like, okay, well, I need to go get my pilot because maybe he knows. So she goes and gets the pilot and she's like, hey, do you know if somebody is like jumping on the plane with us, yada yada. He comes and checks also. As soon as he looks at this guy to ask how and why he's on the plane, he immediately goes white and freaks out. And he goes, oh my God, that's Bob. Bob had been dead for a few months by then. As soon as he screamed, oh my God, that's Bob, Bob completely disappeared. So Bob Loft was a pilot of Eastern Airlines on Flight 401. Bob Loft was the pilot of Eastern Airlines on Flight 401, and it crashed on its way to Miami, killing 101 passengers. This resulted in Bob passing away in this crash and also the engineer named Don Rebo. Both of these guys would be seen a lot on this airline. Over the next few years, there were lots of sightings of Bob and Don throughout the airplane. An entire cockpit crew saw Don appear and warn them about a faulty electrical circuit that was later found true. There was so much talk about different airlines and this one being haunted that people were obviously always talking about it. And Eastern Airlines wasn't having anything to do with it. They even told their employees, do not be telling ghost stories, it's not true, don't talk about it, yada yada. Until Eastern Airlines vice president actually was getting on the plane and saw Bob for himself. So, behind the scenes, they started taking apart these airplanes. So what happened was Flight 401, the impact of the airplane, there was still parts of the airplane that were still in great condition. So they decided to start putting these throughout their own airlines to save a buck. So after the crash of Flight 401, the airplane still had a lot of pieces that were still in really good shape. So the company, to save a buck or two, took these pieces out and put them in other airplanes. That is when people started seeing sightings of Bob and Dawn. After the vice president saw the sighting of Bob, he decided we need to take everything out that was on 401 and just get rid of it completely. So slowly behind the scenes, people are starting to take these pieces out of the airplanes, not making it publicly known that, of course, it was haunted. So as soon as they started taking these pieces out of the airplanes and putting them brand new, the sightings of Bob and Dawn went away. Do you guys remember hearing the story of Flight 401 and the hauntings that came after? Let me know in the comments.
These two girls fell asleep on a completely full airplane, and when they woke up, there was no one else on board. It was just a regular weekday flight. At some point, both of them dozed off. But when they opened their eyes, they were completely shocked. The entire plane was empty. No passengers, no flight attendants, not even the pilots. The weirdest part, the plane seemed to already be on the ground. Of course, they started freaking out. When they stepped off the plane, things got even creepier. The airport itself was totally deserted. In a panic, they began walking around, trying to find anyone, checking every corner, calling out, looking for help. But there was no one. Not even outside on the runway was there a single person in sight. Just imagine the kind of fear they must have felt. Being in that situation would terrify anyone. Still, they kept wandering around the airport, hoping to find something, someone. But even inside the airport stores, everything was gone. No people, no products, just empty aisles and shelves. Pretty strange, right? If you've ever been to an airport, you know they're usually packed with people at all hours. So what happened to everyone? Did they somehow slip into another dimension? Or maybe they just broke the matrix?
Remember that video of that woman who was screaming on the plane and she was saying that mother effer isn't real? She was making this big scene and she was escorted off, and then she came out and made a video literally in the same clothes at the airport saying like, oh, I was intoxicated, or basically like she just made a big deal and she apologized for the whole incident, but like people didn't really buy it. Well, I got a story kind of related to that, sort of. This woman emailed and said that her grandfather was in the Navy. He had an interaction with a pilot while at the Navy Museum in Pensacola because I always went there as a kid for vacation. Her grandfather was actually one of the guys that painted the anchor outside. She said ever since that lady came out from the plane, she's always thought about this incident. My father was always really into planes and the Blue Angels, and so in 2007 he took her to an air show there. After the air show, they were letting everyone who wanted to come into the museum and meet the pilots. Her grandpa's like, oh, do you want to meet the pilots? And she's like, yeah. And he's like, okay. So they go inside the museum and they're waiting in line to meet this one pilot. Also, I shared another Blue Angels pilot story before, and Blue Angels fans came for me in hordes. And listen, I'm not saying that all Blue Angels pilots are something otherworldly, okay? I'm just sharing this woman's experience. So anyway, she says they're standing in line and they get up to the pilot. There's still like a few people in front of them, but she makes eye contact with the pilot that they're standing in line to meet. And as she makes eye contact with him, her entire body goes numb. She said she felt like she was looking into these long tunnels, like his eyes were there, but he wasn't looking at anything, if that makes sense. She says, I swear on everything, his eyes just weren't right. It was like looking into dead, empty tunnels where eyes should have been. She said as she locked eyes with him, she could not move, but maybe it was just the way he was standing. Maybe it was just because she was intimidated, like she didn't know. But then she feels her grandfather's hand tighten around her arm and he starts to pull her out of line. She looks up at him. She's like, what's up? He's like, we're not standing here. Like, we're leaving. She says, oh, I wanted to meet the pilot. He goes, not this one. Other lines for other pilots, but they headed home. Later that night, she was supposed to be in bed. She heard her grandparents downstairs talking. She goes and she peeks and she's eavesdropping, as we do when they're children, and she hears her grandpa say to her grandmother. Context, by the way, was that the grandma was asking if they had met the pilots, and the grandpa says, no, I thought they were all gone, but they saw me, and I think she saw them, like speaking of the granddaughter. Grandma just gasped and she was like, she saw them? And then he quickly hushed her and he said, we don't want to wake her up. She said at the time she was always too afraid to ask questions. She's 28 now. He's sadly passed on, so she doesn't really know what he was talking about. What's interesting is she said they did go back a couple of times because it was a close family vacation for them, but anytime they went to that museum, her grandpa would keep like an especially close eye on her. He would keep her really close. He would tell her not to look people in the eye. Very weird, unsettling, and unexplained behavior from her grandpa. But yeah, let her know what you think. This isn't at all related to the woman on the plane and those MFers not being real, but Interesting enough to share, I think. If you're new here, this is Spooky Scary Storytime, the series where I share listeners' allegedly true stories about the creepiest or most unbelievable things that they think nobody else would believe or that they've never shared before. So if you have a story, we would love to hear it.
Francisco Hernandez is a night patrolman at the airport in La Ciudad de Mexico. It's his job to make sure that no one is left on the plane after landing. One night in 2016, at around 3 a.m., he heard banging noises from this seemingly empty plane. So he came back to check it for a second time, with only the flashlight on his phone to guide him. It didn't take long for him to realize that he wasn't alone on the plane.
Verga.
Pay close attention to the restroom on the left side of the plane at the back, in the very same area that he just checked.
No, mommy.
Did you see the dark figure?
Verga.
Watch as it peeks around the corner and stares him right in the face.
No,
Imagine being on a plane and seeing the ghost of someone who died in a crash years earlier. In 1972, Eastern Airlines Flight 401 was flying from New York to Miami with 176 people on board. As the plane prepared to land, the pilots noticed a problem with the landing gear light. The crew became focused on fixing the issue, not realizing the plane was slowly losing altitude. Moments later, Flight 401 crashed into the Florida Everglades. 101 people survived, but sadly, 99 people lost their lives. But that wasn't the end of the story. After the crash, strange reports started coming from airline workers. People claimed they saw the spirits of two crew members who died that night, Captain Bob Loft and flight engineer Don Repo. Some flight attendants said they saw a man in a uniform sitting in the cockpit before he suddenly disappeared. Others claimed they saw the faces of the lost crew members appear on other Eastern Airlines flights. The rumors became even stranger when people claimed that parts from the crashed plane had been placed on other aircraft, and that the spirits had followed those parts. Some people believed the crew members were returning to warn people about danger. Others believed the stories were just rumors created after a tragic accident. But the question remains, were people really seeing the ghosts of Flight 401? Or did one of the worst aviation disasters of the 1970s create one of the most famous ghost stories ever told? What do you think?
Did you know? Once the flight attendant leaned closer and whispered, "Sir, please stop talking to the empty seat." The man frowned. But someone's sitting there. She glanced at the seat beside him, empty. Seatbelt unfastened. Her smile tightened. "Sir, that seat has been empty since takeoff." The plane hit light turbulence. The man felt a cold presence next to him. A voice murmured softly, "She can't see me anymore." The oxygen masks dropped from the ceiling. Panic spread through the cabin. Everyone grabbed a mask, except one. The mask above the empty seat was already down, gently swaying, and slowly. It tightened around something invisible. The man turned to the flight attendant. She was staring now, not at him, at the empty seat, and quietly she said, "Oh no."
In the skies above northern Japan, there are nights when locals claim they hear it. The roar of an engine that shouldn't exist. On August 12, 1985, Japan Airlines Flight 123 took off from Tokyo. Minutes later, a failure tore through the plane. For 32 minutes, the pilots fought to control it. Then, the mountains swallowed the aircraft whole. 520 lives gone. Hikers say on quiet nights, you can still hear the echo of screams in the valleys. flickering cabin lights in the trees, and the smell of burning metal on the wind. Some witnesses swear they've seen it, a massive shadow passing overhead, soundless with no lights, just the shape of a plane gliding too low. But radar never shows anything there. They call it the flight that never landed. And if you ever find yourself alone in those mountains at night, look up, because you might see hundreds of faces staring back down at you, pressed against windows that no longer exist.
Still need to escort me out?
Yeah. You had your own warning. So, keep walking.
Oh yeah, until y'all see that fight blow up.
Okay.
Say whatever you want. I'm telling you, I'm getting the fuck off, and there's a reason why I'm getting the fuck off, and everyone can either believe it or they cannot believe it. I don't give two fucks, but I am telling you right now, that motherfucker back there is not real. And you can sit on this plane and you can fucking die with them or not. I'm not going to. Bye.
Our flight attendants had us close the blinds. They insist it's mandatory. Story by you/Emma Watson, but dumber. I began my flight around 9 hours ago. I left New York for Singapore, which would have me fly for around 19 hours, making sure to pack sleeping pills and chewing gum for my horrifying ear and jaw pain. My sinuses always act up when the pressure changes, and I dreaded this flight, especially because I had to do it alone for some conference. I listened absently to the instructions the flight crew gave us, gestures to oxygen masks, emergency exits, first aid and so on. They mentioned the Wi-Fi, the food menu, etc. The closest attendant was a girl with a tight bun and bubblegum pink lipstick. She had an overly sober expression plastered on, and even though her lips were stretched into a smile, her eyes weren't. After the usual part, some other specifications followed. Ladies and gentlemen, please keep in mind that we will be flying very high and the pressure change might affect you. In case you are feeling extremely sick and experience very serious headaches, do not hesitate to notify the crew. We might experience turbulence when we reach a certain point, and should a critical moment occur, please do listen to the instructions of the crew and the captain and follow them precisely. I didn't really care about whatever they had to say. I doubted the crew would help my piercing sinus pain. The moment we took off, I swallowed the sleeping pills and dozed off. I had some music on and my sleeping mask on, so I got completely cut off by the rest of the plane. I remember some dreams that seemed to clog my head the way fever dreams do, of shape twisting and convulsing, bigger than I wanted them to be, stretching and taking up space, straining my mind. I remember the feeling of being held down by shapes as heavy as lead, the feeling of hotness and itchiness. This bleak and irritating obscurity was soon completely ravaged by a sharp, explosive pain reverberating directly through my jaw. The pain pierced through my sleeping pill magic and startled me awake, wide-eyed and confused at the darkness that was actually my sleeping mask, sweating and nauseous. I finally yanked it off, but I couldn't focus my eyes on anything, as pain just kept exploding like fireworks into my jaw, between my eyes and right between my throat and my ear canal. It was like nothing I'd ever felt before. I couldn't even cry or talk. I was just too perplexed, too shaken. I endured the next hours, or minutes, praying for it to just end. Hammers were hitting my eye sockets and my temples and screwdrivers were being jammed into my gums and nostrils. I felt my stomach rise up to my throat and suddenly a terrible tightness and convulsions took over my neck and chest. My agony ended so abruptly that I could still feel the marks the pain has left, like the moment when you look directly into the sun and then luminous spots plague your vision for a few minutes. I stood there in shock, processing and cursing my stupid sensitivity. Looking over the seats at other passengers, I could spot a few pale and completely shaken faces that told me they had experienced the same pain. I was exhausted, and I just wanted to get out of this steel cage. The seat in front of me was too close to my face, the top too low, almost hitting my head, and the plane window too close. My legs felt stiff and my back hurt. I checked my watch. 7 hours in. For God's sake. That's it. I'm going to the restroom. I tapped the two guys sitting next to me, and asked them to stand up. They both groaned and moved away. I stumbled to the restroom, overcome by dizziness. I'm going to puke in the toilet. Fine. I'm defeated. I opened the door to the plane restroom, but, once I was inside, I couldn't figure out how to lock it. As I said, I was puking, so I didn't mind anyone walking over me. I poured out my stomach and then spent another 15 minutes just splashing water over my face. Anyway, I'm mentioning this detail because I assume the flight attendants didn't know the restroom was occupied, since it looked unlocked and no one had come out in a while. Otherwise, they wouldn't have let me hear the following conversation. Should we do it now? I'm not sure. I wasn't even supposed to take this effing flight. Calm down. If they panic, it'll only be worse. We need to just be very, very careful, Joe. Yeah, sure. And if we crash? We won't crash. We did this many times and nothing happened. Calm down. I just think we should. I unfortunately gagged really loud and it was truly unexpected, and they heard me and stopped. I proceeded to puke some green juice. I flushed, which sounded like another engine of the plane was right there, in the toilet. F my life. I opened the door and gave them an awkward smile, as I hopped to my seat. The two attendants looked at me as if I were at a family function and had walked into them talking crap about me. I went back to my seat and wanted to die. I was quickly reminded of my awfully claustrophobia-inducing seat. I just wanted to go back to sleep, so I swallowed a pill and slapped the mask over my face. Ladies and gentlemen, please close off your window shades immediately. This is mandatory and for your safety and the safety of other passengers. I couldn't drift off, however, because I felt a hand over me. Hey, what the F are you doing? Please close your blind. The flight attendant chick is going crazy over this, mumbled the boy next to me, while pulling the shade down. All of the flight attendants were watching over their own seat section. The girl watching over us was biting her lip nervously and gripping the seat with her tense fingers, her knuckles almost white. She noticed I was staring at her and gave me a grimace smile. In the dim lights of the plane, the tension was almost palpable. No one was talking. All blinds were closed. All was silent. The little tablet on my chair showed we were flying over the North Atlantic, entering the polar zone. Open ocean. No land. What exactly weren't we supposed to see? Some military ship? Some military base? I suddenly felt pressure behind my eyes. The feeling of nausea returned. I felt as if I was hanging upside down. I tried to swallow. I popped some gum into my mouth. Another 11 hours to go. F me. The plane was awfully silent, and if that didn't scare me, the look of the flight attendants sure did. Their eyes were constantly darting to each shade and they were breathing heavily. They wouldn't act like that for some effing military base. They look the way animals do when they're desperate, when they're in danger. Funny, we like to think that we are not animals. Yet, we get angry and nervous when someone stares at us for too long, even if they're doing that through a wall. Or an airplane shell. I felt a knot in my throat. Hey, why do we have to close the blinds? Asked some lady from behind me. We're flying over a layer of atmospheric radiation. The glare can temporarily blind or disorient you. Came the automated response. So, it's temporary. Please mind the instructions. Otherwise, you will receive a fee. There is a real potential of damage. That seemed to shut the lady up. 10 minutes passed. Then another 10. I tried to play some music, but I couldn't doze off and now I felt as if my skull vibrated. Maybe it did. So did my chest. After an hour of uncomfortable silence, I was certain of the low vibration in my chest and head. Somehow, it felt familiar, a frequency so low, but so known to me. I had no idea what to think. The frequency went higher, and then everybody could hear it. Everybody could feel the whole plane vibrate. It was a different kind of turbulence. What the heck was that? I couldn't really place it, but it seemed very, very familiar, and very out of place. A young woman suddenly stood up and turned to the attendants. The look of recognition in her eyes ignited something inside me. When she spoke, her voice had a certain dryness. What is that? You tell me right now. The wind is very strong around here. The radiation. Don't BS me. Don't effing BS me. This is my line of work. How is it possible? How? Were those screams outside? No, they couldn't be. Couldn't be. The woman plunged to open the blind, but the closest flight attendant grabbed her and yanked her out of her seat with a force that had to be illegal. He then pinned her down. What the F are you doing? What are you doing? I will sue you. Those sounds weren't human. No human could emanate those sounds. And how could they even be human? You're flying thousands of feet up in the sky. Let go of me. I need to look outside. I don't care if I get temporarily blinded. The attendants didn't flinch. They kept staring at us, and now I was more afraid of them than of what would happen if I opened the window shade. A match of screaming followed, and then the flight attendant leaned in and whispered something into the woman's ear. She went quiet. Another half hour followed, while we all stood still, awake and watched over, like some naughty kids. The lights of the plane flickered, then turned off for a brief moment, but the moment they turned back on, a scream erupted from a flight attendant, who plunged and yanked down a window shade. Some old man had lifted it a little bit. I'd only seen a thin strip of light leaking, lingering on his face colorless and cold. What was that? Sir. He stood up. His lips moved, forming words without sound. Then the muscles in his neck tightened, and his jaw began to quake as if something were pulling it open from the inside. I'd never seen someone so pale, shivering, teeth clattering and eyes wide. His pupils were almost non-existent. What the F was that? How can it be possible? I don't understand. I don't understand. I don't. I really don't. He kept repeating, then froze, mouth parted in wonder. Then, he looked up at us and muttered. We're all going to die here. That's it. Sir, you are being escorted to the end of the plane, where you'll sit with. You could escort me to hell and I wouldn't care. You have no authority here, he mumbled, his eyes now completely darkened and mouth hanging. He left his seat, then kneeled in the middle and let out a terrible wail. No one spoke after that. They restrained him, and now he's in the back. I asked to go to the restroom and I was granted permission. While passing his figure, rocking back and forth and unblinking, I managed to sneak in one question that bended into the frequency that encapsulated the plane. He answered between his clenched teeth, and his response had me puzzled until I reached my seat. My question had been, "What did you see?" Another half hour passed and I glanced at the old man, only to see him cold and pale, eyes forever open. He was discreetly pulled into the cabin by an attendant. All of us are afraid to speak, but it is clear that we won't open the blinds. I wrote this with trembling hands, my chest vibrating and the pressure behind my eyes nauseating. I still have many hours left of flying above the ocean, and I can feel the unblinking gaze of flight attendants on me. I feel something coming. I feel something approaching us. I'm afraid to experience the so-called turbulence they mentioned, and the old man's response still haunts me. Those were his last words, before he left us and remained unblinking, words spoken with a concerning lucidity. Tell me, have you ever stared into the eye of a blue whale?
Here's another scary story, but a quick warning. If you're flying anytime soon, maybe skip this one. I was on a flight home from Jamaica when the pilot's voice came over the loudspeaker. "All right, folks, looks like we have some seriously rough air ahead." Suddenly, he was cut off as the plane started to free fall. We hit an air pocket and dropped for about 3 seconds. It was chaos. People, food, and drinks floated out of their seats, just like in those astronaut training videos. The oxygen masks deployed. The girl next to me grabbed my arm like her life depended on it. Then we dropped again, this time for 4 seconds, and the lights went out. I looked over and saw a flight attendant strapping herself in, making the sign of the cross and praying. That's when I knew it was serious. The sheer helplessness was terrifying. We survived, but I'll never forget that feeling. Follow for more.
The Boeing 333 took off with 142 passengers. Only 141 were alive. The lights flickered right after takeoff. A cold breeze moved through the cabin. Flight attendants whispered that seat 27A was empty, but someone kept pressing the call button. I walked down the aisle. The cabin grew colder. The call light blinked again over 27A. I stepped closer. The seatbelt was buckled. The cushion was pressed down, like someone invisible was sitting there. Then I heard breathing, slow, deep, right beside my ear. A voice whispered, "I never boarded, but I never left." The call button lit up again, and the empty seat smiled back at me.
I've been flying for almost 30 hours and the flight attendants won't stop crying. 30 hours ago, right as I boarded my flight, I fell asleep for a while before waking up to severe turbulence. When I looked at my phone, it said it was 4:03 a.m., but my jaw dropped when I looked out the window. I knew there was no ocean between my two destinations, so why are we flying over an ocean? I called a flight attendant over only to see her grinning from ear to ear, tears pouring down her cheeks. "How can I help you?" she asked. "Where are we? Why does it look like we're flying over an ocean?" She wiped her tears, still grinning. "We'll be landing in about an hour." After she left, I checked my phone again, 4:03 a.m. It hadn't changed. Something was terribly wrong. This isn't possible. So I started a stopwatch and stared at every clock, waiting for the time to change. It never did. My stopwatch is now telling me I've been on this plane for more than 30 hours. I tried talking to the other passengers, but they all said they're expecting to land in an hour. I'd almost given up hope when a woman walked down the aisle. She didn't look at me, but she dropped a piece of paper onto my tray table. It said, "Are you stuck too?" I pulled out a pen and wrote, "Yes, it's been 30 hours." I folded up the paper and the woman picked it up as she passed by. It's been 20 minutes since then. I don't think the flight attendants would like it if they knew we were talking, but I have to do something. I'll update you all with whatever happens next. Follow for more.
Did you know a fucking haunted airplane once flew the skies? This is the eerie tale of Flight 401. Would you fucking consider going on a haunted plane? On December 29th, 1972, Flight 401 crashed into the Florida Everglades, killing fucking 101 people. The pilot was trash and crashed the fucking plane into the fucking ground, flattening everyone on the fucking flight. They, for some fucking reason, salvaged some of the crashed plane's parts and built it onto another fucking plane to save some more fucking money. Months after the crash, crew members reported seeing the fucking ghosts of Captain Bob Loft and Engineer Don Repo, the two greatest pilots. These apparitions only appeared on planes using parts salvaged from Flight 401. Maybe if they had some common fucking sense, they would have got the fucking parts out the plane. But no, they kept the parts in because they enjoyed the freaky ghosts on the plane. One flight attendant saw Captain Loft in first class, who vanished before her fucking eyes into thin fucking air. If that was me, I would have crashed TF out. Engineer Repo's ghost warned about mechanical issues that prevented potential disasters. I guess this fucking ghost wasn't just out to creep the fucking people out. He was a kind fucking soul. I guess he wanted to make up for how fucking terrible he is at piloting the fucking plane. Eastern Airlines removed all salvaged parts, and the hauntings stopped. But the legend fucking lives on. They might still be lurking on your fucking flights. But you guys are too focused on your fucking phones playing Candy fucking Crush the whole flight. Next time you fly, take a good look around. You never know who might be fucking flying with you. There might be a creepy ass ghost next to you, or it might be just a fucking crying baby next to you. But make sure you do the right thing and punch the shit out of them.
This is a true story that no one believes. In 1955, Pan Am Flight 914 took off from New York with 57 passengers, heading to Miami. It was a clear day and everything seemed normal until the plane vanished from radar. No distress call, no crash site. The plane was gone. After months of searching, the passengers were declared dead. Families mourned. The flight became just another unsolved mystery. But then, something strange happened 37 years later. In 1992, at an airport in Caracas, Venezuela, a plane suddenly appeared in the sky. Air traffic control was shocked. The aircraft was old, not seen in decades. The pilot sounded confused, asking where they were. When the plane landed, ground crew said the passengers looked frozen in time, still dressed in 1950s clothes, shocked by modern sights. But before anyone could board the plane, it suddenly took off and vanished again, right into the sky. Authorities arrived minutes later, but it was too late. Witnesses swore what they saw was real.
When they called my number to board the plane, I looked back to see the man staring at me again, and this time, he grinned at me. I was very uncomfortable at this point, but since there was free seating on this airline, I figured I would just sit in the very back, hoping he wouldn't follow me.
The Airbus A321 has 8 emergency exits, 2 doors in the front, 4 doors in the cabin, and 2 doors in the back.
When I got to my seat, I looked out for the man, hoping he would take one of the front seats because they were all open. Instead, I see him make his way to the back, and he sat right next to me. I was near the window. The middle and aisle seat were both open, and you guessed it, he sat right in the middle seat. At this point, I was really freaking out, because I did not get good vibes off this guy. He smiled at me, and I gave him a weak smile and turned my head to the window, hoping he would not talk.
Hi there, my name is Jack. What is yours?
He said, most likely giving a fake name. I looked at him and I panicked. Riley, I said. I gave him my real name.
Riley, what a beautiful name.
I just said thanks, and continued to look out the window.
What school do you go to, Riley?
The way he said my name made me scream on the inside. I wanted him far away from me. I said, I don't see how that's important. He looked at me and put his hands up and apologized, chuckling.
Never fly alone on a plane, or terrifying things will happen. Flight attendant Lisa had just walked through the cabin when she noticed a trail of bloody footprints following right behind her. A girl and a monk saw it all clearly, but were too scared to make a sound. The terrified monk began chanting scriptures. The other passengers remained completely unaware. This journey would become their lifelong nightmare. At that moment, Lisa was preparing meals for the passengers when she suddenly felt a chill down her back. She realized what she had seen, but no one else could see it. Her colleague reassured her to focus on work, but as soon as she walked down the aisle again, another trail of bloody footprints appeared behind her. Soon after, a passenger headed to the restroom, when suddenly a pair of ghostly hands grabbed him from behind. The eerie events continued. Another passenger suddenly stood up uncontrollably, his face blank as he said he couldn't breathe. The next second, his head twisted 360 degrees, and he collapsed to the ground. Strangely, he wasn't dead. He stood up again as if nothing had happened. Meanwhile, David pressed the emergency alert button. The co-pilot, worried about the plane's safety, decided to check the cargo hold. What he found was a horrifying sight. This thrilling movie is called Flight 407.
Amelia boarded the late-night flight, seeking solace in the familiar hum of engines. Yet, an unsettling hush came over the cabin, and shadows played an eerie dance on the walls. Mid-flight, the aircraft plunged into momentary darkness. Whispers, ghostly and barely audible, echoed through the air. Amelia's heart raced as skeletal figures materialized, occupying vacant seats with faces etched in silent screams. Summoning the flight attendant, Amelia found the crew oblivious to the haunted apparitions. Panic gripped her, realizing she was trapped between the living and the dead on this frightful flight. The intercom crackled to life, emitting a hollow voice, recounting a tragic crash years ago. Tormented souls denied peace continued their journey on this ethereal plane. Ghostly hands pressed against walls and windows, and ghastly faces reflected despair. As the plane descended, the ghostly passengers vanished, leaving Amelia in chilling silence. Stepping off the plane, she glanced back, unsure if the journey was illusion or reality. The haunted flight had ended, but the memories lingered, a reminder of the blurred line between the living and the haunted unknown.
In 2014, a commercial plane flying over Malaysia began to behave strangely. It was Flight MH370 with 239 people on board. The route was routine, but just minutes after takeoff, it simply vanished, disappeared from radar. No distress call, no explanation. The strangest part, data later showed the plane made sudden turns off course, as if someone had taken control. But who and why? Years later, fragments of the plane began washing up on distant shores, thousands of kilometers away, but the rest where it was never found. Theories exploded: mechanical failure, pilot suicide, sabotage, or something even darker, hidden by governments. Some believe it was shot down. Others claim it crashed in a secret location and was covered up. But to this day, no solid evidence has surfaced. And while the world still tries to understand what happened, 239 families remain waiting for answers. Flight MH370 didn't just vanish, it took with it a truth that may never be revealed.
Flight 472 was supposed to be uneventful. As the plane soared through the night, a thick fog enveloped it. Suddenly, the lights flickered and went out, plunging the cabin into darkness. The hum of the engines was drowned by eerie whispers. A cold mist seeped from the vents, coiling around the passengers. When the lights flickered back on, the mist vanished, but faces now appeared distorted and sinister. A passenger screamed, seeing the ghostly face of a young girl pressed against the window before it vanished, leaving a frosty handprint. The pilot's garbled voice came over the intercom: "Not alone. Presence. Danger." The plane lurched violently, and the whispers grew deafening. In the cockpit, a shadowy figure loomed, its eyes glowing. The co-pilot slumped lifeless as the figure passed through him. The mist returned thicker and colder, and passengers vanished one by one, their seats left empty and cold. Desperate, a few tried to reach the cockpit, but the aisles seemed infinite, filled with sinister laughter. Suddenly, the plane burst out of the fog into clear skies. The mist dissipated and the lights stabilized. The remaining passengers, dazed and disoriented, landed safely. Emergency services found many seats empty, with no trace of the missing passengers. Flight 472 was grounded permanently, left to rust in a remote corner of the airport. On foggy nights, airport workers swore they heard whispers and saw the faint outline of a young girl pressed against the windows, waiting for her next flight.
Welcome, I'm Jessie from Midnight Hauntings, and you're about to dive into a world filled with chilling stories and spine-tingling mysteries. If you're a fan of the dark and eerie, you're in the right place. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up, and share it with your friends. The night is full of secrets, and we've only just begun.
On a dark, starless night, Flight 323 took off from New York, headed to Paris. Everything seemed normal at first. The hum of engines filling the cabin, passengers settling in for a long sleep or a movie. But just 2 hours into the flight, things took an unexpected turn. Layla, sitting by the window, was the first to notice something strange. The air grew unnaturally cold. When she looked at the window, She saw a peculiar fog forming on the glass, as if coming from outside, even though the plane was flying thousands of feet above the ground. Suddenly, the lights went out for a few seconds, plunging the plane into darkness. In those brief moments, Layla heard a piercing scream, its source unclear. When the lights came back on, a disturbing scene unfolded. One of the passengers, who had been quietly seated just moments earlier, was now sprawled across the floor, motionless. The eyes of everyone widened in fear. The flight attendants rushed to him, but there was no apparent explanation for what had happened. As the passengers tried to comprehend the shock, more terrifying incidents followed. Empty seats began to move on their own, as if something invisible was sitting in them. One passenger heard soft laughter coming from above, and when he looked up, he saw a pale face of a child peering at him from the overhead compartment. He blinked, and the face vanished, as if it were never there. The most frightened passenger was sitting in the middle of the plane when he felt a cold hand grip his arm. He looked around to see the ghost of a woman in old, blood-stained clothes staring at him with lifeless eyes. He screamed loudly, but when the flight attendants arrived, there was no trace of her. The flight had turned into a nightmare in the sky. Lights flickered randomly, and the sounds grew louder. Heavy footsteps above, whispers from nowhere, and the overhead bin doors opening and slamming shut, as if trying to trap the passengers. The captain announced, in a trembling voice, that all electrical systems in the cockpit were malfunctioning, and he had lost control of the navigation system. The passengers began to lose hope as the plane entered a zone of severe turbulence. With each jolt, passengers saw visions of ancient, angry spirits roaming the cabin. In a terrifying moment, seats were being dragged from their places, and luggage flew through the air. Then came the voices, screaming spirits, crying and calling out the passengers' names, as if they knew everything about them. Just before completely losing control, the pilot made an emergency landing. When they finally touched down at Paris airport, the passengers disembarked in shock, but no one could forget what had happened. For them, the flight was more than just a journey. It was a direct confrontation with beings from another realm seeking revenge. The biggest surprise? When French authorities investigated what had occurred on the plane, they discovered that Flight 323 followed the same route where another plane had crashed 50 years ago, and all its passengers had perished under mysterious circumstances.
That's it for today's chilling tale. If you enjoyed the story and want more spine-tingling content, make sure to subscribe to Midnight Hauntings. Leave a comment with your thoughts and any suggestions for future stories. Give this video a thumbs up and share it with your friends. Stay tuned because the night is full of secrets and we've only just begun. This is Jessie signing off. Until next time.
I'm a passenger from the missing American Airlines flight. I think we'll be flying forever. I've taken my iPad off flight mode to connect to the internet and post this. I've tried checking the news, but it seems different. I should be in Argentina by now. To explain, I'm flying to Argentina for a holiday. My boyfriend, Michael, suggested we get some proper sun, and he'd seen a cheap deal online with American Airlines. We left Ohio and spent the night before the flight with my sister and her family and started cream pieing each other. That should mean last night, but I feel like it was so long ago. We had an early flight, so it was still dark when we left for the airport. Everything went fine with check-in and boarding. It was busy, but everyone looked sleepy like us, just eager to get on the flight and get to some much-needed sunshine. Michael and I are in the middle row, so we can't see out of the windows at all. If I'd been by a window, maybe I'd have seen something, some change in the landscape, and could explain what's going on. I don't know how long we've been flying. The pilot hasn't made any announcements in ages. I read for maybe 30 minutes to relax before sleeping, while Michael just went straight to sleep. I feel like I slept for hours, but it's impossible to say. It was when I woke up and went to check the time that I saw my watch had stopped working. Michael woke up at pretty much exactly the same time as me and asked if we were nearly there yet. As if I'm flying this thing, I sat up and looked around, and that's when I noticed everyone seemed to be doing the same as us, waking up, looking around and remembering that they were on a plane, looking at their watches and finding them broken. That was when I started feeling nervous. Why is every watch broken? I spoke to the young family behind us. They've stopped at different times. I don't know if that's comforting or not, but either way, the mood on board began changing and people were looking scared. Nothing seemed obviously wrong. We were still flying. No turbulence. It's just that everyone had gone to sleep and woken up with a broken watch. I realize there are much more sinister things that can happen on a flight, but this is just weird. Shortly after we'd all woken up, the flight attendants came past with a trolley of drinks drinks, but they just ignored everyone. They called out offering drinks as they went, and a few people tried to ask them the time and where we were on the journey, but they just brushed everyone off, saying they'd check, and kept smiling at us. I tried to put it to the back of my mind. Other passengers shook their heads or shrugged and began reading books and magazines. By the time I'd read all my magazines and already had that first sleep when we got on, I was thinking we had to be nearly there, but nothing was happening. No announcements, no seatbelt signs to get us ready for landing. We just kept going. The reason I've started writing this is that things have started to change again. Specifically, the light has changed. We left in the morning and are flying south in a journey that should only take a little over 5 hours. But about 10 minutes ago, guessing, the sun set. I know now that means we've been flying for much longer than we should. I must have slept for hours. The father of the family behind me is up, banging on the door to the cockpit. He's screaming at them to tell us what's going on. No one is stopping him. The flight attendants are just looking neutral, like nothing unusual is happening. Some passengers are looking the same, like they've zoned out. Others are crying. I'm not sure what to do. There's nothing I can do. We just keep flying. It's getting darker, but it's not just night sky darkness. It's like there are thick black clouds outside the windows on each side, blotting out any light from the sun or moon. Whatever time it is, it's like when a storm is coming and everything gets dark and quiet. People are just sitting in their seats, staring forward, like they're having an out-of-body experience. I guess it could be a coping mechanism, but so many are doing it. Even Michael has lost his energy and is just sitting next to me, looking like he's resigned himself to some awful fate. He's just staring at the tray table. More people are falling asleep again, and I've just noticed something else. There are less people here. There are a few empty seats dotted throughout the plane that I'm sure were filled earlier. They can't all be in the bathroom. I can't see any stewards either. The man from the seat behind me isn't there, but he isn't still, banging on the door to the cockpit. I guess he could have been escorted somewhere, like the back of the plane, to calm down. Shit, the pilot has started making an announcement. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. Apologies for the delay to your flight caused by unexpected pit stops. What is he talking about? We have not stopped once. I've just looked around to see if anyone else is looking confused, but everyone is either asleep or just there, like they're here physically, but they're dead-eyed and silent, like dolls. We are now approaching your final stop and hope that you enjoy your stay. Good luck, Darren. What the fuck? I just turned to Michael to ask if he heard that too. The pilot just fucking spoke to me, but he's different. I don't know what it is. He was already quiet like the others, but I've just noticed something that I hadn't spotted before. Oh god, now I've just realized what has seemed off about the other passengers. Something subtle has been changing in them, but I don't know their faces so well, so I didn't see it until it started to happen to Michael. His face, it's becoming less him, and I don't know, it's like his features are generic. I don't know, everyone looks really similar, like all the unique things about Michael have been dialed down. That bump on his nose from rugby is less pronounced. His freckles are gone. Even his hair looks tidier, and that spark in his eyes, it's gone, like a dummy. I tried shaking him, but he just looks back vacantly, like a stranger on some strong sedatives. The plane is silent. I've stopped shaking Michael because even the sounds I'm making, trying to quietly reason with him and make him speak to me, are just making the plane seem even quieter, like being a loud person in church. I just feel such dread, and I don't want to draw any attention to myself. I'm the only one reacting or moving. I feel like I'm alone. There are more empty seats now. I don't even see people getting up from their seats. Where are they going? We're still flying. No signs of starting to descend. No let up from the blackness outside. Just a silent plane going around the dark skies. I don't know how long we've been going. I have no way of telling anymore. If you can read this, please check the news. Please see if you can see any stories about a flight that hasn't arrived due into Argentina on 3rd of January 2024, which must be at least 2 days ago by this point, but who knows anymore. I'm starting to feel sleepy again. As I finish writing this, 2 brown-skinned gentlemen with long beards have infiltrated the cockpit.
Thank you so much for joining me on this captivating Reddit story adventure. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did sharing this incredible tale. If you liked what you saw and want more intriguing Reddit stories, don't forget to hit the like button and follow for future videos. I'm looking forward to reading your thoughts and comments, so feel free to share your opinions in the comment section below. Thanks for being here, and I'll catch you in the next video with more fascinating Reddit stories. Until then, stay curious and stay connected.
Wait until the end. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting eerie shadows across the airport tarmac, passengers began to gather at gate 13. The departure board flickered ominously, announcing the arrival of Flight 666. Whispers spread through the crowd, tales of this cursed flight known to strike fear into the hearts of even the most skeptical travelers. Boarding commenced, and as I settled into my seat, a shiver ran down my spine. The air felt heavy, suffused with a palpable sense of dread. The flight attendants wore strained smiles, their eyes betraying a deep-seated fear. As we taxied down the runway, strange occurrences began to unfold. Lights flickered, casting unsettling shadows along the cabin walls. A chill wind swept through the plane, despite the sealed windows. Murmurs of unease rippled through the rows of passengers. Mid-flight, the intercom crackled to life, emitting static-laden whispers that sent shivers down our spines. Ghostly apparitions appeared in the aisles, their hollow eyes fixed upon us with malevolent intent. Some passengers claimed to hear disembodied voices, pleading for release from their eternal torment. Desperate, I pressed the call button, summoning a flight attendant. But when she arrived, her once human visage contorted into a grotesque mask of terror. "We must appease the spirits," she hissed, her voice laced with madness. Terrified, I stumbled back to my seat, heart pounding in my chest. The plane seemed to lurch and sway unnaturally, as if caught in the grip of an otherworldly force. Time lost all meaning as we hurtled through the abyss, trapped in a nightmare of our own making. Finally, as dawn broke on the horizon, the plane touched down with a jolt. As we disembarked, I glanced back at the empty cabin, overcome with a sense of relief mingled with dread. For Flight 666 had delivered us to our destination, but at what cost? Some mysteries are better left unsolved, lest we risk awakening forces beyond our comprehension.
In my eyes, we were landing safely. Confused murmurs filled the cabin. As we stepped off, I looked back. The cockpit was empty, and the flight attendant smiled eerily. "Welcome to Hawaii." But I could see her eyes, hollow, like the figure I'd seen. Days passed, but I couldn't shake the feeling that we were not alone. Each night, I dreamed of that shadowy figure and the whispers, searching for something or someone. I found myself drawn back to the airport, standing near the deserted aircraft. In the stillness, the whispers returned, echoing around me like a haunting melody. I stepped inside, the air thick with tension. The shadows flickered, and I could almost hear the cries of those who had flown before me. I moved toward the cockpit, driven by fear and curiosity. Suddenly, the door slammed shut behind me. I was trapped. The shadows coalesced into anguished figures. I realized this wasn't just a haunted plane. It was a tomb, a vessel for lost souls seeking closure. I had awakened something, and now I was part of their story. I knew I might never escape the grip of Flight 247. The whispers grew louder, urging me to join them in their eternal search.
Flight 417, Oslo to Newark, October 2019. 206 passengers, routine crossing, landed 11 minutes early. Nobody noticed anything until the head flight attendant, a woman named Britta Solheim, did her final cabin walkthrough. The rear lavatory was locked, occupied light on. Britta knocked. Nothing. She knocked harder. Nothing. A male crew member opened it with the external release. Empty. The sink was dry. No sign anyone had been inside. 3 passengers told investigators they had seen a woman enter that lavatory roughly 2 hours before landing. 40s. Dark coat. Window seat. Row 26. They all described her the same way. Row 26, seat A. The manifest listed it as empty the entire flight. No name. No boarding pass scanned. The seat back pocket untouched. The tray table locked. Gate footage from Oslo showed 206 people boarding. Investigators counted frame by frame. 206. No dark coat. No woman. No one unaccounted for. The 3 witnesses were interviewed separately. Different cities, different backgrounds. None knew each other. All 3 drew the same face. One of them, a retired teacher named Carl Voss from Bergen, remembered something else. She had no shadow. He thought it was the cabin light. He still thinks about it. The airline cross-referenced every passenger on every Oslo-Newark flight for the prior 6 months. The composite sketch matched no ticketed traveler, ever. Investigators filed the case under administrative anomaly, closed it. Carl Voss wrote a letter asking what that meant. He never received a reply. Britta Solheim still flies the Oslo-Newark route. She says the rear lavatory stays empty on night crossings now. Not policy, just something the crew decided. Nobody said why. Nobody had to.
Every single time you think the story's not going to get worse, it's going to get worse. Before I had kids, I was traveling for work, and I'll never forget a mom traveling with her 2 small kids, and her 1 kid threw up. And from that day on, it was engraved in my mind that that's one of the worst things that could ever happen to you. Foreshadowing, it's worse. My family and I were just in the Bahamas for spring break. Second to last night of us being there, my husband got food poisoning. So it was like all night long, all the awful stuff. It was just him. Like, we thought, you know, that sucks for him, but he recovered. He's a big boy, so he was fine for like the travels home, and we thought, okay, it was just him. Our flight from the Bahamas to Miami, everything is perfect. Everyone's normal. You would have never known the shitstorm that was about to occur. We did see somebody get arrested as they got off the plane, and like, you would think maybe that's the craziest thing we'd see. No. We're on our flight from Miami to Pittsburgh. It's a 2.5-hour flight. We get on. My oldest son is in the window. I'm in the middle. My youngest son is in the aisle. My husband's across the aisle. Taking off. We're on the runway. Engines are revving up. My oldest looks at me and goes like this. I don't even have time to react. Projectile, exorcist style, vomit everywhere. On me, on him, on our bags, on the seats. The flight attendants are doing their safety stuff. It's like business as usual. He's puking. Everyone around us is horrified. I'm trying so hard to like clean everything up, but it's in everything. Friendly reminder why you should always scrub the shit out of your seat when you get on, which I always do anyway, but after this experience, you should really, I feel so bad. Little did I know that wasn't gonna be it. For the rest of the 2.5-hour flight, he threw up in 20 to 30 minute increments the whole entire flight. Now, granted, the rest of the flight, he was able to throw up in a bag. Everyone gave me their bags. I had a pile of bags. My husband had a big trash bag that the flight attendants gave him. So it was literally a conveyor belt of my son puking, me taking the bag, giving it to my husband. He's tossing. In such shock that this is happening. And I cry maybe twice a year. I'm not a crier. Everybody knows that about me. I'm just so like overwhelmed and in shock that I start crying. I'm not even gonna lie, I've been such a hater of American Airlines because they're never on time, but how nice and kind the flight attendants were for this whole scenario. I have a new respect for American Airlines. They were like bringing me tissues, offering me wine, shots, like they were just so nice. The flight attendant was trying to make me feel so much better. She's like, this happens all the time, it's okay, don't cry. So I'm like pumping my son up. I'm like, we're almost there, don't worry. We're finally landing from this flight from hell, which by the way, I feel so freaking bad for everyone around us. Like, what's worse than having to smell someone else's vomit and know someone's puking around you? Like, I literally feel terrible for everyone around us. I really do. I feel bad for my son. I feel bad for everyone. You think it stops there? We're getting ready to land, finally. Getting ready to land. My youngest, the one sitting in the aisle, starts projectile vomiting. The guy behind us is like, oh my God, the other one's throwing up now too. Everyone's in shock. All the like teenagers are putting their shirts over their heads as they should. Like, it's like in the movies with the audible gasps all around. And I'm like, my husband and I are like horrified. We're looking at each other in disbelief, like, is this seriously happening? The flight attendants make an announcement on the thing saying like, can you guys please let the family with the 6 children get off first? Because we were like way in the back. So, which was really nice of them. We had to do the walk of shame up the whole airplane. Everyone had their shirts over their heads as they should. I'm not offended. I feel terrible. We do the walk of shame. Then we do the walk of shame to baggage claim. I am covered in vomit. I'm carrying my son's book bag covered in vomit, and both of my kids are carrying throw-up bags. So at this point, clearly, they both have food poisoning. However bad you think this was, I want you to know it was worse than what you think, because it was so horrific. So then, wait, it doesn't end there. We realized we always drive to the airport, always. Pittsburgh just reconstructed their whole entire airport. So we were like, let's try something different. Let's Uber to the airport. So I, like, in all this forgot we had Uber to the airport. And I'm like, how the hell are we gonna put 2 puking kids in an Uber? Oh, we're like, okay, 20 minutes, we can do this. We got an Uber. Again, so thankful this man was so nice. They're both in the Uber with their throw-up bags. And I'm looking at the GPS on there and I'm like pumping them up. I'm like, we're almost home, guys. We're almost home. These poor guys, think about how awful food poisoning it is, and think about having it on the airplane and in an Uber. And I'm like pumping them up. I'm like, we're almost there, guys. We're almost there. I look at the GPS. It says 11 minutes. My youngest starts throwing up. Thankfully, it's in a bag in the Uber, but he's throwing up in the Uber. I'm horrified. The Uber driver's trying to be nice. He's opening the windows because it smells. It's fucking disgusting. It's so gross. My husband gave him a big tip, like he was so nice. I'm again so grateful for everyone who was so kind to us during this, because there are still good people in the world. It was definitely food poisoning because they were totally fine the next day, but they both were like throwing up the whole night we were home too. So I have such bad PTSD from this travel experience. Mind you, we've been traveling with our kids since they were babies, every single year. Nothing like this has ever happened. And when I had the nightmares of like a puking kid on a plane, I never imagined it to be a puking every 20 minutes, both kids. If you were on that flight, like, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. That is so awful. It was awful for everyone. It was awful. I'm traumatized.
This footage was taken on the edge of the Hocking Hills, just north of Nelsonville, Ohio. What appears to be simply a nauseatingly winding gravel road surrounded by dense forest and deep valleys is actually the site of a tragic incident that has left a terrifying imprint on this place. It's now known as Airplane Hollow. On May 16, 1941, a terrible storm covered all of Ohio. The winds blew so fiercely that the nearby family barely heard the sound of the airplane quickly approaching. Within the twin-motored army plane were 5 soldiers who were from a squadron out of Barksdale Field, Louisiana. The plane was on its way to Cleveland, and as the brutal winds and torrential rain battered the small plane, the pilot decided to perform an emergency landing in a nearby field. Unfortunately, the pilot was unable to reach it in time, and the plane crashed into one of the steep hills outside of town, leaving a 100-foot gash along the side of the hill. All 5 of the soldiers died in the crash, and their bodies were identified the next day. The names of the 5 soldiers were William J. Wyant, James Criswell, Robert L. Brown, Robert Sonnenfeld, and Sergeant John H. Davis. Now it's said that the shadows of crooked, bent men can be seen walking along the gravel roads. It's said that whatever remains hidden in the shadows of Airplane Hollow calls things in, but never lets them out. Is it the soldiers that remain, or something far more sinister?
This is the most horrifying story I've ever heard. In 1990, a routine flight took off from England to Spain. They had just reached 17,000 feet, which is normally when passengers start to relax and think the hardest part is over. That is when the cockpit window absolutely blew out. I don't just mean cracked, it completely shattered. The air immediately exploded outward and the pilot got sucked out of the plane. As he was being sucked out, his legs somehow barely caught on to the controls inside the plane. One of the flight attendants heard the explosion, ran to the cockpit, and without thinking, grabbed the pilot's legs. At this point, the flight attendant is holding the pilot's leg as the rest of the pilot is face forward, pressed against the outside of the airplane, traveling hundreds of miles per hour in the freezing cold. At this point, the flight attendant was unable to let go of the pilot, even though he was clearly dead, because if he did, his body could get trapped in the engine and bring the entire plane down. Meanwhile, the co-pilot is just sitting there trying to figure out how to land the plane in all of this chaos and ignore the trauma taking place right next to him. By some miracle, the co-pilot is able to land the damaged plane and no one else is hurt. But here's the craziest part. When they pulled the captain back inside, he was still alive, and not only that, he went back to work 5 months later.
Make sure it shows. Okay. Doing the Bloody Mary. Okay. Is it recording? Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary. As the ritual, as everything, please come out in the dark shadows on the mirror.
Oh, and they say you should spin it around and say it 3 times.
Okay.
Anything you want to say.
Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary.
He's doing that. What? What? Okay, get out.